Tonight, you will close your eyes and disappear into another world. You will see faces, landscapes, threats that aren't real. You'll feel emotions so vivid they jolt you awake. And when you open your eyes, you'll probably assume it didn't mean anything. Just your brain doing whatever it does at night. But here's the thing. Scientists who study sleep across cultures and across time have discovered something that doesn't fit that explanation. Something that makes the dreams you had last night far more ancient and far more intentional than you ever imagined. You dream differently than any human being who lived before electricity. That's not a poetic statement. It's a measurable, documented fact. For most of human history, sleep wasn't a single long block the way it is for you. The historian Roger Ekirch spent over 2 decades researching pre-industrial sleep patterns, and what he found reshaped our entire understanding of the sleeping mind. Before artificial lighting, humans slept in 2 distinct phases, separated by an hour or more of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night. They called the first phase their first sleep, and the second their second sleep. In the gap between them, they were awake, alert, often talking, praying, having sex, or lying still in the dark with whatever had surfaced from the first wave of dreaming. That means your ancestors didn't just sleep differently. They had more deliberate access to their dreams than you do. In that middle hour, dream recall was almost total. The dream was still alive in their minds because they hadn't rolled over into a fresh morning and a phone screen and a list of things to do. They sat with it, they talked about it. Some wrote it down. In many cultures, they believed this in-between hour was when the most important information arrived. And across those cultures, the dreams themselves had a shape. Anthropologist Kelly Bulkeley has spent decades analyzing dream reports from ancient societies, from Egypt, from Mesopotamia, from indigenous populations across Africa, the Americas, and Oceania. His research, detailed in his book Big Dreams, found something striking. Across all of them, certain dream types appear again and again, regardless of era or geography. Being chased, falling, flying, encountering the dead, being unprepared, teeth falling out. These aren't modern anxieties, they are ancient ones. They appear in Assyrian clay tablets from 2000 BCE. They appear in the Egyptian dream book papyrus from 1275 BCE. They appear in accounts from cultures that had no written language and no contact with each other. Your brain is running the same program it always has. The question is why? The answer may come from what researchers now call the threat simulation theory of dreaming. Psychologist and neuroscientist Antti Revonsuo at the University of Turku proposed that dreaming evolved as a biological rehearsal system. In the ancestral environment, threats were not abstract. They were real. A predator in the dark, a hostile group from a neighboring territory, a failed hunt with no backup plan. Death was not a distant concept. It was a daily possibility. And your brain, according to Revonsuo, used the sleeping hours to run simulations of those threats so that your waking mind would already have responses prepared. When you dream of being chased, your body doesn't know it isn't real. Your heart rate climbs. Your muscles tense. Your nervous system files the experience under things I survived and how. The next time a real threat appears, your brain has already practiced. Ancient humans didn't just have this experience more vividly, they interpreted it differently. They trusted it. In ancient Mesopotamia, dreams were considered dispatches from the divine. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest surviving works of literature on Earth, is saturated with dreams that carry prophecy, warning, and instruction. Gilgamesh himself dreams of his companion Enkidu before they meet. His mother, the goddess Ninsun, interprets the dream with precision. She isn't guessing. In that culture, dream interpretation was a science. There were trained professionals, dream temples, ritual incubation practices where a person would sleep in a sacred space specifically to receive a message. This wasn't superstition in the modern sense. It was a technology built around the observation that the dreaming mind reliably produced information the waking mind hadn't yet processed. Ancient Egyptians shared this view. Their dream books, some of the oldest surviving psychological texts in history, catalogued what different symbols meant when encountered in dreams. A dream of a deep well meant danger. a dream of brewing beer meant arrival of good things. A dream of your face in a mirror meant a second wife was coming. Whether or not those interpretations were accurate is not the point. The point is that these people were paying close attention to their dreams over generations, building a systematic record of what their sleeping minds produced. Your sleeping mind is doing the same thing tonight. The only difference is that nobody told you to pay attention. The dreams of indigenous cultures hold even more nuance. For many Native American nations, the dream was not a private experience, it was a communal one. In Iroquois tradition, the dream expressed the hidden desires of the soul, and the community had a responsibility to help the dreamer fulfill what the dream revealed. If you dreamed of a feast, the village held a feast. If you dreamed of a particular song, the song was sung. This was not seen as indulgence, it was seen as necessary maintenance of the inner self, the part of you that couldn't speak in daylight. Think about what that means for a moment. They built their entire social structure around the proposition that what your mind does while you sleep is important enough to act on. Modern science has arrived at something close to that conclusion, though it took a very different route to get there. In the 1950s, Eugene Azarinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman discovered rapid eye movement sleep, what we now call REM. They found that the most vivid narrative-driven dreaming happens during REM cycles, and that the brain during REM is, in many measurable ways, more active than it is while awake. Blood flow to emotional processing regions increases. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational judgment, goes relatively quiet. What's left is pure pattern recognition, raw emotional processing, and memory consolidation running without the filter of logic. Matthew Walker, neuroscientist and author of Why We Sleep, describes REM sleep as a form of overnight therapy. During REM, your brain strips the emotional charge from difficult memories while retaining the factual content. You wake up with the experience but without the sting. Or at least, you're supposed to. Studies on PTSD and trauma show that when this process is disrupted, the emotional charge stays attached to the memory and the nightmare keeps returning because the brain never finished the work. Your ancestors who sat with their dreams in that middle of the night waking hour may have been doing something neurologically productive without knowing it. By reviewing the dream while it was fresh, by talking about it, by sitting in the dark and letting it settle, they may have been extending the integration process that REM sleep had begun. They were giving their brains time to finish the sentence. You, by contrast, wake to an alarm, grab your phone, and push the dream out of your mind before it has a chance to speak. Within 5 minutes, 90% of dream content is gone. Not because you're less capable of dreaming than your ancestors, because you've built a world that makes no room for what the dreaming mind produces. The most remarkable thing about ancient dream culture isn't the mythology around it, it's the attention. Every culture that survived long enough to leave records took dreaming seriously as a source of usable information. Whether that information was spiritual, psychological, or practical didn't matter. What mattered was that the information existed, that the mind produced it nightly without fail, and that ignoring it had consequences. There's a recurring pattern in the ancient record of leaders who dismissed important dreams and paid for it. Rulers who acted on a dream and were saved. Healers who received a diagnosis in sleep that their waking minds had missed. Was that coincidence? Confirmation bias? Maybe. But the neuroscience of insight suggests something else. When your prefrontal cortex goes quiet in REM sleep, and your brain is free to make connections without the interference of what should and shouldn't go together, it routinely produces solutions to problems your conscious mind has been stuck on. Scientists and artists and engineers throughout history have reported waking with the answer. Elias Howe dreamed the solution to the sewing machine needle. Dmitri Mendeleev dreamed the arrangement of the periodic table. Paul McCartney heard yesterday fully formed in a dream. These weren't mystical events. They were your brain doing what brains do when you let them run without interference. Tonight, when you close your eyes, your brain will begin a process that is more than 200,000 years old. It will search your memories for unresolved threats. It will replay emotional experiences until they lose their edge. It will connect things that your waking mind kept separate. It will produce images that feel random but aren't. Symbols that feel meaningless but carry the weight of everything your nervous system is trying to sort. The ancient humans who slept in two waves and sat quietly in the dark between them weren't being primitive. They were being attentive. They understood, without the language of neuroscience, that the sleeping mind was doing something worth noticing. Tonight, when you wake in the early hours and the dream is still there, still vivid, still asking something of you, the way it always has been for every human who ever lived, maybe the most modern thing you can do is the oldest thing. Lie still. Let it speak.